All right, Gary, I'm going to try to distill a little bit of what you said, rephrase it in my own words, and hopefully I won't mischaracterize what it was that you're saying. Um, off the bat, I'll be clear that I don't want to make it sound like I don't want to slander you or anything like that. I'm just going to try to paraphrase what you said to make sure that I understand it, and if my paraphrasing is incorrect, you should correct me. So, from what I understand, you want a universal definition of morality. And by universal, you mean one that is from a non human perspective, a non subjective perspective. You want a definition of morality from the perspective of intelligence or objectivity. And, you went on to sort of ask what we could mean by morality and how we can make there be an objective morality. And you didn't really provide much in the way of a theory of objective morality. You just said that it would be based on intelligence. Um, but you used a couple words like intelligence and productivity, um, deliberately contrasting them to words like happiness, pleasure, cheese, so you wanted to show the difference between people who are moral for objective reasons and people who are moral for subjective reasons. Subjectivist people who have a subjective theory of morality see the goal or the base foundation for morality as that which makes you feel right, whereas objectivists seem to say that there is an intelligent reason to do the good. But see, the problem is, what is the good? Um, what is the good? What is this transcendent source of value that gives our morality its quality of objectivity? That's a question to you. I mean, I don't think you answered it in this video or any of your other videos about objective morality. What is it that intelligence is striving to accomplish? Um, so this intelligence that knows the objective morality, subjectivity has no part to play in this intelligent understanding of objective morality, but this subjective understanding can be influenced by suffering, I guess. And again, I'm trying to paraphrase what you were arguing for. So the suffering can influence our understanding of morality, but it is not the source of it, because suffering is subjective, as Pilate said, but as you thought that he misunderstood the structure of your argument. But you seem to be taking a stance very similar to Freud's, in that the levels that you break the human mind up into, the reflexive part, the reptile brain that just responds genetically, biologically to the environment. Our heart beats, our digestive system breaks down our food, our lungs breathe for the most part until we become aware of the process. Our skin grows itself, our hair grows itself, our cells replace themselves, and so on and so forth. Um, and then there's the conditioned brain, which can learn more than just what genes and biology have provided for. It can actually go beyond reflexes and um, learn something new and behave in novel ways. But then on top of that is intelligence, which can think logically and objectively about the world and is not attached to the world. So in a sense, intelligence for you is disembodied. It has nothing to do with this thing here. Maybe it's language. Is intelligence a product of our languages? Um, Could we be intelligent without words and numbers? Are words necessary to be logical? Let's put it that way. Could we be intelligent beings without language? Another question for you. But this structure is like Freud's because the intellect is the superego, the conditioned mind is the ego, and the reflexes are the id. And just to solidify the connection I'm drawing here, you seem to think of the intellect as disembodied, and you won't admit that it's a social thing. But the reason I brought up language before is if the intellect is a product of language, well, language is a social phenomenon. It's something that large amounts of people do. There's no such thing as a private language. Um, Wittgenstein's famous argument that you cannot understand words unless you understand them in a social context and you use them to create a form of life and understand your situatedness in a society by using language to get things done in in a social way. In other words, to be understood by another person, you use certain words that will cue certain reactions in them. None of this has anything to do with the objective definition of a word, what the word refers to in reality. What it has to do with is how people perceive words. And so for Freud, the superego, which I'm trying to relate to your notion of the intellect, was this overarching authority of society as a whole, which sort of told the ego what it was supposed to be like, what rules it was supposed to conform to. The ego, the conditioned mind, is the personality. It's what learns to be what it is based on interacting with other egos. And then the id is the unconscious. It's everything that we can't control, and it just wells up in us. And it's the passions. It's sexuality. It's desire and hunger and the libido, basically. The force of evolution that drives everything. That's for Freud. The chaos of nature. And so your model is a lot like Freud's, and maybe you'll see the resemblance. But if not, correct me, please. I don't want to in any way mischaracterize what you were saying. I'm just trying to express how I understood it. So my problems now with all of this is that you're assuming that the intellect is somehow free and unconditioned. Freud thought it was a social phenomenon, maybe somewhat based on language, but based on our social context. But you're saying, no, it's somehow housed in each person individually. Each intellect is capable of logically understanding the world without being influenced by any social context. So each individual person can know an objective morality independent of what its society has taught it and what its society understands at that current time, what the social imaginary is at that current time. The individual is totally separate from that. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think the intellect is as radically free as you think it is. I think the intellect, the language it uses to be logical and rational, is socially conditioned and historically conditioned, and it can never transcend that. So it can certainly meta-analyze a language and see deeper into the construct of culture and society, but it doesn't escape it. It doesn't escape it to the extent that it could stand atop it and declare once and for all an objective morality, which you haven't been able to do yet. You've said that there is one, but what is it based on? I mean, describe it for us. What are the maxims and the rules? Avoid suffering at all costs in a rational way. I guess is to the extent of what you've said about it. But what is the purpose of avoiding suffering? If the universe is meaningless, if nature is chaotic, then there is no morality. And you're taking half of that stance by saying nature is chaotic, but then you're trying to say that there is an objective morality nonetheless, because of the intellect that only humans have magically. And it's that magic I want you to explain. What is the intellect? Is it connected to language? And if it is connected to language, then isn't it a social phenomenon rather than something each individual possesses independently of its society? So let me know what you think.